Well, yeah, we're here in church.
We're here.
We're not on our own. Well, yeah, socially distanced from that character.
Valentine.
Just after Valentine's Day, 14th of Feb. And lots of post-it notes there from the kids and the congregation. Yeah. The fact that we're in this building is great, you know, you and me, I know. But 4th of July, things are going to change, aren't they? What we're going to be allowed to do then, 4th of July?
Well, according to government guidance, on the 4th of July, we're going to be allowed to, places of worship can open again to provide, they're allowed to open in June for private prayer, but we know that for us this is more about a place about people and where we worship God together, and there wasn't a lot of interest. I put the offer out there, but I got a total response of 0 to people wanting to come here and pray on their own, which is fine. Well, I think obviously we're a very different sort of church. It's not like a parish church set in the middle of a town where you have the doors open and people can pop in when they're out, you know, and just have some private prayer. Most of us, you know, have our own prayer lives at home and are used to praying by ourselves. Whereas our function here is very much a community. It's a family. It's a church where we worship God together with one another. We serve one another. We're involved in things together. So it wasn't really very meaningful. But from the 4th of July, places of worship are allowed to open again.
Right. So how's that going to affect our services then?
Well, I'd say we're allowed to open again. However, this has been the same on many things, that they've taken a while before they've published guidance. They say we'll be able to do it, so we've known that the 4th of July was coming for a long time. But the guidance was only actually published on Monday to enable us to think through what it actually means in practice. And the specific guidance says that, for example, services are to be, I say, minimalistic. There's to be no singing for a start.
Yeah, I heard that.
No chanting.
We don't do a lot of chanting here.
We don't do a lot of chanting.
No, but we certainly do a lot of singing, so no singing.
So we can hum. I don't know, you know.
I see. Yeah.
It's not quite this, because you're not opening your mouth and
no,
speaking.
You're not projecting. No.
There, we can have activities which are led, but it always has to be appropriately socially distanced within the place. So that means sitting 2 meters apart, or 1+, as they say, which is if there are other mitigations in place. We're also saying that services need to be as short as possible, and you have to have everything set up so that people are kept away from one another. So although places of worship can open, the same regulations apply as anywhere else. In other words, there can be no social contact. We're not allowed to sit and have a natter with one another. The guidance says things like, you know, if you happen to meet someone you know at your place of worship, I think obviously that would apply to, for example, if you went to a cathedral and you happen to meet someone you know in that sense, but obviously to a church like ours, which is very much, it's a community, then essentially we would know everyone there. But we're not allowed to socialise. People have to stay in their groups, either with your bubble or your family, but you cannot have contact with others. So you can't go around and chat to people. It is purely for a religious activity, a ceremony, and then people are to be encouraged to leave the building as soon as possible. So it's in, do your stuff, and out again. So exactly what we want to do and how we want to do that, compared with what we are as a community, it's not clear really.
So do we need to do things to make ready for that? Or?
Yeah, there's a whole list of things which we have to do. The building has been sanitised a couple of times, once when we went into lockdown and now again coming out of it. All the chairs have been wiped down. But that's the kind of thing which would happen after every activity. We also have to have a full risk assessment in place, a COVID risk assessment. We'll have to set up one-way systems around the place. There's an awful lot of stuff to make it work.
Which is not easy to have a one-way system really, think about it here. Corridors are narrow,
that's it.
Out the back door and
precisely. We'll be using the fire escape, we'll be coming in one way and out the other, all that kind of thing. No shared objects in the church, so we won't be able to use the church Bibles, for example. Well, they do specify you can use them, but the Bibles would then have to be put in quarantine for 48 hours before they're used again, which is fine from week to week. Yeah, bring your own hand gel. Oh yeah, all of that. There's a whole lot of stuff which would have to go with it. So we're not going to be able to be, it's not back to normal, it's not back to things as it were. But it is mean we can start to do something when we see what we feel this would actually be useful for us. Because both people I've spoken to have said, "Right, would you do this? Would you come out?" Yeah, while you're at it, you know this. What do you think about
I've
it?
been touching the Bible.
Would you come out to a place where you can't sing, can't talk to people? We're not allowed to give you a lift. You've got to wear a mask while you're here, and you've got to get out as soon as we're finished. And for many people, the risk
There's
simply
not a
isn't
lot of
worth.
attraction to do
No,
that.
that's right.
is there? No.
So we'll have to see how we can do and what we can do. We may try and get something going for next weekend if we're able to get things in place in time.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
Or it may be the week after.
Yeah.
We are looking to be able to hold our AGM in some way or other, because we feel that's an important part of our church life. But we'll get details of that out as we go along.
Yeah. And you're doing a lot of online stuff already. Yeah. We're having.
Yeah.
I'm aware of 2 Zoom meetings a week. That's just for the congregation, but you're doing other things as well. So how's that going?
Good in some ways. It's all new, and this is you probably saw, those of you that saw the service last week would have seen the Wallace and Gromit little bit where trying to lay track in front of you as you're going along in your train, and it feels a bit like stepping out into the unknown, hoping there's a stepping stone there, trying to learn new things, trying to understand what's the best thing to do, at the same time as realizing that we're having to reshape things as we go along, because obviously as you learn, you see what's good, what doesn't work so well. And then circumstances change, so you're having to reinvent things all the time. You may have seen the interview on the news, a lady who just spent a few £1,000s to get her shop ready for 2 meters. And then she's told it can be 1 meter plus, and she's, why didn't they do that before? So there's a constant battle in that sense. But the other thing with online stuff is that obviously when we're doing something online, it doesn't just serve our own community.
Yeah.
In the sense of our church congregation who know that's there, but it's open to other people. And so we're wanting to try and make sure that what we're doing is more relevant and more fitting for others.
Yeah.
And perhaps be a positive way of bringing other people exposure to church. So you may see some changes in our online resource. So going from what was essentially trying to package a service into online format to something which perhaps better meets the needs of a wide variety of people.
Yeah.
Now, in doing that, I'm also conscious that you can't please all the people all of the time.
No.
But hopefully we're not at the place where you can't please some of the people any of the time, no.
Well, we'll certainly be pleasing some of the people most of the time, but not all of the people all the time.
But that's what we're aiming to do,
Yeah.
and that just means that there will be some things in what we do which might not be your cup of tea,
Yeah.
but it might actually be what someone else needs.
Yeah.
And as I've talked to people and simply researched in an informal way, asked people, how did you find this, how did you find that? The contrasting views, people who like certain forms of worship, people who don't, people who really appreciated the live stream that we did the other week. Was that last week? It was. How typos.
Yeah.
And other people who preferred the previous version, etc. So we're trying to put things together in a way which will actually meet all of our needs in that way.
What about help for you? You seem to be doing quite a lot.
There's some things which people can do, and there's other things which, like me, you've never done in the past, but people can learn to do.
Yeah.
And inevitably, in what we're having to do in this, there's a lot of stuff which is being doing through using digital resources. And so maybe you've never done a Zoom meeting before, for example, but maybe you could learn. It's a time I've had to learn new skills in doing this. And the situation we have isn't going to go away tomorrow.
No.
And so as a church, we have to adapt to this. We can't just expect any sort of thoughts of return to normal simply are unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so we do need people to be prepared to take responsibility for certain things, and to be prepared to learn new skills, and to say, I'm prepared to, okay, I'll run with this, I'll do this, whatever that is. And so if it's saying, for example, if we are able to get back together again in some way, someone say, okay, I'm prepared to be part of the team which will make sure that church is ready for that. So setting up chairs, ensuring that chairs are sanitised.
I mean, serving God in a different way, and it's not desirable that you do everything. I mean, we understand you sort of with your leadership team will decide on what things to do, but you need help, and so the best way is is to, as you already have asked, can people help, but maybe to reinforce that. As we're asking now, is anybody out there who could possibly help Neil with some of these things? It could be you. And just get in touch with them. If you're a technical person, then I'm sure he'll welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, no, that would be... Anyone who has some technical experience is prepared to learn other stuff.
Yeah.
That's particularly important at the moment.
Yeah.
So, for example, here we've been recording this morning.
Yeah.
Here. And according to current regulations, we're allowed to do this. We could have someone in who's filming, we could have someone in who's mixing sound, we could have a couple more musicians safely spaced out here. And so we could probably produce something which is, if I say it's better, trying to do in-house stuff, because in-house stuff connects people. And so a couple of people are prepared to do that, to give some time to that. Again, all with appropriate social distancing in place.
Of course.
And the other thing will be, as other activities get going, so we're not going to be able to go back to what we did in many of the things, because a lot of stuff was very social. But we are going to be able to do some things. And some activities will also be new, stuff which we haven't done before. And people to help come alongside some of that.
The new ones, because they lend themselves to socially distanced environment?
They lend themselves to that, and also because we're looking for new ways that we can serve the community. Because if some of the things we have been doing are no longer appropriate, so we're talking with Dorothy the other week, how do we start toddlers? When there's about 3,000 toys out there which would need sanitising. And there's some things which are going to be difficult to do in the way that they were done in the past, but there may be new things that we can do. So, for example, indoor bowls. We're going to look to start up indoor bowls as an activity. Now, at this moment in time, the building can only be open for what is deemed to be a religious activity. It's for services of worship or preparation for services of worship. So we're not doing other things. The only other thing we are allowed to do is attention to people who are vulnerable. That kind of activity is allowed to continue within our premises. But as lockdown is eased, and we're looking towards the autumn and an opening, there will be an opportunity to do other things. Youth activities, for example. Youth activities are already allowed, not on our premises at the moment. But so maybe people who could be part of, how do we build something new for working with kids and working with young people? That sort of thing will be vital as we go forward.
I think it's best to remain positive about these changes. And God has a way of encouraging us to do new things, and maybe this is it, to think of new ways to connect with people.
I think you're right, we do have to see this as an opportunity, as well as it's been a threat to us as a church and our activity, but at the same time we were very aware of our need to change and adapt what we were doing if the church is going to thrive going forward in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And this is our chance to do that. It's forced upon us in some ways.
We can't do it the old way at the moment.
No, we
so
can't.
We have to change. And then hopefully that change will be taken on board and be a new normal, as they call it.
If you think of something like Acts chapter 8, persecution broke out against the church. You think, persecution! But the result of that was the believers who had been scattered because of that persecution took the gospel with them to where they probably should have been going anyway, but hadn't been. You know, the gospel was for Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and ends of the earth, but they were still locked in one place. But as they went, because of the persecution, then the net result of that was a tremendous impact for the kingdom of God.
Because of the scattering.
And I think we have to look the same, because of what we're being forced to do through this can make us engage in new and different ways and be much more of a blessing to our community around.
The new normal.
The new normal.
Well, thank you, Neil.
Pleasure.
Well, thanks for all you're doing, and I hope you get lots of offers of help. Or one or two.
One or two will do for starters. But thanks ever so much for being here today as well and helping me put the service together.
No problem.